You're watching TelecomTV from the MEF16 event in Baltimore. And it's time now for the first of two panel discussions we're having, focused on the event's PoC zone. There are 14 different proofs of concept at this year's event. I'm going to focus on one of them now, and I'm joined by three representatives of that PoC, and I'd like to ask you all to introduce yourselves, starting on my far left.
Hi, my name's Eitan Schwartz. I work for Rad Data Communications, actually working for them since 1991. My involvement with CenturyLink goes back about 7 years.
My name's Kevin Wade. I work for Ciena's Blue Planet division, and I represent our Blue Planet product from a marketing perspective. And our product had played a part in the PoC, so we're here to talk about that today.
Thanks, Kevin. And Jack?
My name is Jack Pugacheski. I'm with CenturyLink, a distinguished architect, also a member of the PoC team here. Happy to be on the team.
Well, thanks for joining us on TelecomTV. Jack, if I can start with you, can you describe what the PoC is? Give us an overview of what this particular PoC does.
The PoC is a demonstration of the LSO architecture in action. So we're leveraging service orchestration functionality, open API to infrastructure management or domain controllers with two open APIs, one for service activation at the Presto, and now a new one that we're bringing in for standardization as a project for performance management.
Kevin, why do we have the need for PoCs? What value do the PoCs bring to our business?
As the name implies, proof of concept implies, you're demonstrating what a solution that the industry has deemed valid at some level. But ours goes a little bit beyond that, I would say, because it's representative of a real world network that is something that CenturyLink has pushed forward. But generally, we're pushing those concepts. These innovative concepts in the industry. We're also promoting and moving interoperability forward as well. And then finally, showing ways in which these technologies add value to the operator, some degree of value.
I mean, it's terrific to see these PoCs at the event all together, but how much work goes into them beforehand? How long have you been working on the project?
The project spans back, you can almost say, to the point when CenturyLink acquired Quest, I would say, as a vendor looking in, and identifying that they have an incredible challenge in having different service providers with different operations and different devices, and having to give end-to-end services. So the PoC here, we've actually been working on this project for about the last 2 years in building this to be to be more than a PoC, to be real network ready solution. What we've added to that PoC is we've added also the virtualization capabilities, where you can host third-party VNFs and run not only do the service activation and the PM invocation, as Jack mentioned, but can also run third-party VNFs to add additional value functions.
And how does this all fit with the MEF Forum's LSO framework?
It fits perfect in that we're implementing the architecture, which implementation is the framework, and we have a service orchestrator, which is a function within LSO. We're using Blue Planet for that function. And then we have two domain controllers, which communicate to the RAD and the Ciena domain controllers using the Presto interface, which is a LSO-defined interface. And so the framework is of two specific APIs, one for activation and one for performance monitoring.
And we've talked about performance monitoring quite a lot these past 2 days. It seems in this more virtualized world, is that a real challenge to monitor a service over the life cycle of a service?
Technically, it's not a challenge if we do what we're doing, which in this proof of, I wouldn't call concept, it's a proof of reality. Mm-hmm. We are demonstrating the ability to invoke, in this case, what's called Y1731 or GETO 13 functionality defined by MEF 35.1 on measuring delay, loss, jitter, collecting that information via that same API and allowing the SLA to be measured, which is for delay, loss, jitter, and then availability. So it's reality.
Yeah, and I would just add to that I agree, it's not particularly difficult, but it is particularly important because that's the way that you're demonstrating to your end customer that you're meeting the SLA that was identified as part of the service. And there are some complexities involved in this, as Eitan mentioned, in doing it across multiple different segments of the network, from end to end.
And I think what's important is that in this case, CenturyLink is not just building a solution with one vendor. So you'll see a lot of PoCs where you'll see complementary service provider and one vendor or two vendors that are all complementing. Here they're actually going to real life. They have a core. The solution actually involves 11 vendors and 2 NID vendors and actually competing vendors, and they need them to work together seamlessly so that they can ultimately choose the best of breed solution. And I think that's important. Now the performance monitoring has to obviously work well and work efficiently, but when we go one step further as to what you were saying about performance monitoring in a virtualized infrastructure, so behind the NID, the carrier Ethernet NID, is a virtualized infrastructure for adding additional value-added services. And it's also possible to monitor that virtualized infrastructure to see that there's no latency or loss occurring on it.
I'd also add that the value add here is we're taking what we're demonstrating out on the floor, and we have collaboratively brought that back into MEF as a contribution, and then projects will now be spawned, one of which will be at the Presto for the standardization. So this is a hybrid approach of traditional standard work, traditional open source, and it's a hybrid, and there's a feedback loop, and so it truly is a collaborative effort, but we're not waiting till the standard's done to demonstrate its functionality, and actually with open source, making that specification, and in this case, API better.
Right, and
I would jump in to what Jack was saying. Not only are we not waiting for the standards, but Jack actually has been driving it at the MEF. And so to a large degree, they had a problem and he helped move this along, and he's been pushing this and along, not only with the vendors, but also with the standardization community.
Kevin. Yeah, taking that advantage of those kind of that DevOps and agile model that service providers as a whole are expressing an interest and frankly a business need to move in that direction, through efforts of ours collaboratively and in many cases, as Eitan mentioned, led by Jack, pushing those concepts into the industry through the MEF for the benefit of all. Yeah, it's great.
So what's next? There's obviously, you're learning a lot as the service provider, working with the vendors and other providers, and the MEF's learning a lot and then feeding that back into ongoing standardization work.
We have other interfaces within LSO that can leverage this type of work and needed API development at the not just at the Presto, but Interlude, Sonata, other Legato interfaces within the LSO framework and architecture. These same ideas and the same type of teamwork is applicable not only to legacy devices, but also what we're doing now with NFV, what we're doing with SDN, because the reality is most carriers are going to have a hybrid of SDN, NFV, and legacy, not just one technology. And so the ability to leverage this type of effort and functionality and open APIs is going to make things come out faster, more reliable, and high quality in a hybrid implementation of those technologies.
And have we completed the PoC? Is that it? Mission over, or is there more work, and will it be extended and developed?
Well, I think that the key part of this PoC was to be able to build an end-to-end network across markets so that CenturyLink gets this national footprint, independent of which original companies were in those markets, and to build those services not in 4 or 6 weeks, but in seconds or minutes, and to be able to modify those services. So if you look at this is a stepping stone, if you've automated this, to, for example, bandwidth on demand, that ultimately the customer can have a portal and can say, I want 20 meg today, and it's not enough, I want 25 meg. And it could even go one step further, going to the point about performance monitoring, that if there is an indication that the performance is not good enough, there's not enough bandwidth, perhaps it can even be automated, that you're feeding back that there's loss because the bandwidth is constrained, and now increase the bandwidth for the customer and affect the billing. So you can imagine that there are a lot of additional ways to get value, but this is a fundamental building block of the automation.
Right. Yeah, and just to add to that, what CenturyLink is effectively doing here is providing a foundation, an automated foundation, initially at the Ethernet layer. They can, on top of that, at some point, enable, VNF and or NFV-enabled value-added services, and also extend it to lower layers of the network, the optical and wavelength layers, et cetera, to really enable, fully virtualized network infrastructure that can support on-demand services, as Eitan said.
And I'd like to add too, the next step we have to do this across the LSO interfaces between multiple operators, multiple providers. Because the fact is most customers, in cases, traverse multiple operators, multiple carriers. So this same approach of these, what I would call north-south APIs, need to start being developed and doing these PoCs east-west with multiple operators, multiple carriers. It's essential.
Well, we look forward to seeing the developments, and we let's hope that this time next year we get more progress on the east-west side. But for now, gentlemen, thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.